So by now we already learned a lot about important React Native components and concepts in general. Our app.js file is getting bigger and bigger, and this is something that happens in most React apps, no matter if you're building for React Native or if you're building for the web. Your components get bigger as you add more functionality. Now what you do in such cases is you break up your components and you split them into smaller components. That is a common approach and a common best practice for keeping your code maintainable. And it's no difference here for React Native. Thus far, we're working with one component only, but this of course is the exception. The norm is that you do work with multiple components, and we want to do that here as well. For this, I'll add a new folder in my project, which I'll name components, because I want to store my components in there. You don't have to use this name, but it is a common convention since we will be building and storing components in there. And then I want to add two component files in there. Goal input.js, because there I plan to store the data input related JS Xcode and functionality. And goal item.js, here I plan to store the actual JS Xcode and functionality that is related with outputting single goal items. And of course, you could split this into more components if you wanted to. Now I'll start working on this goal item component. In there, I'll add a function goal item because I'll create a functional component, and I will export this as a default. So I will build a standard React component in there. Now you don't need to import React from React here. You did need to do that in the past, but with the modern versions of React Native and React, you don't need to do that anymore, and therefore a functional component can be created just like this. Now in this goal item component, I want to return some JS Xcode. And I actually want to return the code that is responsible for outputting a single goal item. So not the list of items, but a single item. And that means I want to use this code here. Hence, I will cut this code from app.js and return it here in goal item.js. Now, of course, here I'm referring to some styles though. And those styles, therefore, also should be brought over. For this, I have to create a new style sheet object that belongs to this component, so to this component file also. And hence, I will import from React Native, and I will import the style sheet object here, which allows me to call the create method, which creates a new React Native managed styling object, which helps with auto completion and so on. I'll store this in a constant named styles, though the name is up to you. But since I'm already referring to this kind of constant here in my code, I will keep the name here. Now, as a side note, we could have also passed our styles from app component to goal item component via props. We don't have to define the styles here, but it is a good practice to keep your styles close to your JS Xcode, and therefore I want to move my styles that belong to the goal item from the app component into the goal item component as well. And that would be these two objects with their style properties. I will cut them in app.js and move them over to goal item.js. And here in this object, which we pass to the create method, I'll paste in these two properties. And with that, I can reference those properties in my JS Xcode. So with that, we're creating this component. We still need to take care about this text, but we get our first component. And then app.js, we can now import this component. We can now also get rid of some imports which we don't need anymore because I'm, for example, not displaying a text component in there and I'm not using scroll view anymore. But I will now import goal item from components goal item. And this works just as it works in a regular React app. We import our components from other files like this. We have a capital starting character because we plan on using this in JSX. And we want to make it clear to React that this is a custom component. Hence, we start with a capital character. Now, down here in our JSX code, where I return some markup inside of render item, I now return my goal item component, so my own component. And this is how we define and use a custom component. And of course, in the end, it's totally the same as we would do it in a React for Web project. There isn't really any difference here.